So, yes. Okay, our today guest on the seminar is Tom Devote from LERM, who will speak on the linearization of scaffold sharing repeated contigs. So please, Tom.
Oh, thank you. So I will present this work. So it's a work I did with Matthias Weller and Annie Chateau and Rodolphe Giraudot. So the linearization is a problem which occur in the bioinformatic context. So for the sequencing. So the sequencing is a process in biology which allow to determine the order of nucleotide in the DNA. So it has many applications like in health, in crime investigation, biology, and so on. So unfortunately, the biologist does not have a device to observe directly the nucleotide into the DNA. So they have to put the DNA into a device called a sequencer, and this sequencer cuts the DNA into small sequences called reads. And in these reads, we know the order of nucleotide in it. So from the set of reads, we want to reconstruct the original sequence. But since we have a lot of pieces here, it's not possible to do that by hand. So we have to use a computer science process to do that. So the main steps to reconstruct the genome are the following. So the first step is the sequencing, the one I just present you. So in input, we have the DNA, and in output, we have a set of reads. The second step is the assembly, when where the reads are assembled into bigger sequences called contigs. And after that, we have the scaffolding and the linearization. But I have to, so the linearization is the subject of my talk. But I have to present you a little bit what the scaffolding is to understand why we need the linearization. So for the scaffolding, we have in input a set of contigs, which are words on the DNA. And if we construct a scaffold graph as follows. So if we think that two contigs are following each other into the original sequence, we add an edge between two extremities of this contig. So for example, if I think that A, T, C, G are followed by T, C, G, A, T, T in my sequence, then I add an edge between these two extremities. So I do that for each pair of extremities, and I obtain a scaffold graph. And now I will use information I have on the organisms I study to reconstruct the original sequence. So for example, if I know that my organisms I have as one circular chromosome and one linear chromosome, then I will search in this graph a collection of one alternating path and one alternating cycle. So like this. So alternating means that we have to alternate between the contig edges and the non-contig edges, like this. So here we have one alternating cycle in yellow and one alternating path in blue. And so formally, a scaffold graph is defined like this. So we have a graph, G star, with a perfect matching, which represents the contig. We have a weight function on the non-matching edges, which represents the amount of confidence that two contigs are linked in the DNA. And we also have a multiplicity function on the contig edges, which represents the number of times that contig has to occur in the DNA. So in the following of the presentation, I will represent the counting edges, so the matching edges, as bold edges, like this. So formally, an alternating cycle or path is a cycle or a path that alternates successively matching edges and non-matching edges, like this. So we have one alternating path here. And for the alternating path, the extremities edges of the path must to be matching edges. And so the scaffolding can be formulated like this. So in input, we have a scaffold graph and two integers sigma c and sigma p. And we want to find a collection of maximum weight of sigma c alternating cycles and sigma p alternating paths in the graph. And we want to respect the multiplicity constraint as well. So for the multiplicity function, so if matching edges has a multiplicity equal to 2, for example, we want that this edges appears in two alternating cycles or paths. So a small example to start. So in this graph, I want to find one alternating cycle and two alternating paths. So in black, it is multiplicities, and in red, it is the weight of the edges. So for the cycle, for the alternating cycle, the only possibility is this one in green, because this cycle here is not an alternating cycle because two non-matching edges are following each other in this cycle. So I can remove these cycles, this cycle in this graph. And now I want to find two alternating paths in this graph. And I want that this matching edges appears 2 times in my path. So I don't take this non-matching edges because its weight is equal to 1. And if I take it, then I must remove one of this edge, and the weight of the solution will not be optimal. So one possibility is this one. So I take this alternating path in blue, and I take a second alternating path here in yellow. So that is scaffolding. So I complete my my little scheme. So in input, for the scaffold graph, we have for the scaffolding we have a scaffold graph, and in output we have alternating cycles and alternating paths. So sorry, it's cut. I didn't notice that. So now I will speak about the linearization. So the problem with the scaffolding is that sometimes two optimal solutions are possible. So for example, in the previous example, we have the two matching edges on the top that was on the same path, that were on the same path. But it's also possible to cross the alternating path like this. So I can take my blue alternating path like this, and my yellow alternating path like this. And since these two alternating paths use exactly the same set of edges, the weight of the two solutions are exactly the same. And I can't choose one of them for a biological purpose, because one of them is chimeric, and that means that it does not exist in reality. So that's why we have to introduce a new problem called the linearization. So from the scaffolding, we produce a solution graph. by merging every alternating path and cycles of the solution. So basically, it's like a scaffold graph, except that the multiplicity function occur on every edges and not just on the matching edges. So for example, it was the scaffold graph of the example I show. And if I compute an optimal solution of a scaffolding in it and I build a solution graph, then I obtain this one. So I remove this non-matching edge because it does not appear in the optimal solution. And I add some multiplicities on the non-matching edges like this. And we can characterize the ambiguity in the solution graph like this. So a uniform path is a path where every edge has the same multiplicity. And we said that a uniform path is ambiguous if both of its extremities has an incident edge with a smaller multiplicity. So for example, this edge in red is an ambiguous path because its multiplicity is equal to 2. And here I have a non-matching edge with a multiplicity equal to 1. And here I have also a non-matching edge with a multiplicity equal to 1. So that's why it is an ambiguous path. And we know from work of Matthias Wöhler, Annie Chateau, and Rolf Giroudot that the scaffolding problem has a unique optimal solution if and only if the solution graph does not contain an ambiguous path. So we have to remove the ambiguous path before producing the sequences. And the solution we choose is to remove some non-matching edges to destroy them. So for example, in our solution graph, I can remove these two edges. And by doing that, this path is no longer ambiguous because I can't find here an incident edge with a smaller multiplicity. So a few definitions before I present the problem. So a matching edge is clean if at least one of its extremities has degree 1. And we said that we cut a vertex, we do a cut, if we remove every non-matching edge incident to a single vertex. So for example, I can cut this vertex, so I remove the two edges here in red. And by doing that, I clean this matching edge because this extremity will have degree 1. And the way to destroy every ambiguous path of the solution graph can be described by this problem. So it is called the summary brutal cut. So in input, we have a solution graph, and we want to find a minimum set of vertices so that if I cut each of these vertex, I can clean every matching edge of the solution graph. We also can see several scoring functions. So we have the cut score, where we want to minimize the number of cuts, and the weight score, where we want to minimize the total weight we have to remove in the graph. So for example, in this graph, if I want to minimize the cut score, then I just have to cut this vertex. So I remove these two edges here. And if I do that, this matching edge is clean. and this one also. But the total weight I have to remove in this graph is equal to 4. And if I want to minimize the total weight, then I have to do 2 cuts here and here. And I remove these 3 edges here. And I have a weight score equal to 3. So in this presentation, I will present you some results on the cut score, principally. Mostly. So an easy result to start. So for the complete bipartite graph, so for the cut score, we can see that if I do a cut for each matching edge, then each matching edge is clean because if I remove these 3 edges here, then this matching edge is clean because of this cut, and it's the same for each matching edge. But so that means that I have an upper bound for the cut score which corresponds to the number of matching edges in my graph. So for the complete bipartite graph, I can say that it's the cut score is inferior to n, where n is the size of each part. And if I want to save a cut, so for example, if I want to save this cut, then I have to cut the 3 neighbors of this vertex. So I have to cut the 4 neighbors, sorry. So I have to cut this vertex, this vertex, this vertex, this vertex. So if I move this cut here, then I can remove the cut in this matching edge. And so by doing that, I can save 1 cut. And so I just need to use 4 cuts in this graph. So the cut score for the complete bipartite graph is equal to n minus 1. So about the complexity of this problem, so it has been shown NP hard for every scoring function, even in planar subcubic graph for cut score. So it's a result of Matthias, Annie, and Rodolphe. And we can improve this result by doing that submodel cut is also NP hard for every scoring function, even in planar subcubic bipartite graph. So I will show you how to. So I show you how to this proof for the cut score, but it's the same thing for the weight score. So to show that, we do a reduction from planar presat. So in input we have a planar Boolean formula, conjunctive normal form, where each clause contains 3 literals, and we want to find a satisfying assignment of the formula. And we know that this problem is NP complete. So to do a reduction, we take a planar embedding of the Boolean formula, and we replace every variable by a variable gadget, and every clause by a clause gadget. So the clause gadget is the following. So suppose I have a clause with the variable x1, x2, x3, where x1 and x3 appear positively in the clause and x2 occur negatively. And in my clause, I construct, for my clause gadget, I construct an alternating cycle with 3 matching edges. And I link each of these matching edges with a single variable gadget. So x1 occurs positively in my clause. So I link. So I forgot to say that I have two coloring on the vertices to keep the bipartition of the graph. So for x1, we link a gray vertex of x1 with a white vertex of cis matching edge, because x1 appears positively in the clause. And in the other side, we just link this vertex with a single matching edge. For x2, since x2 appears negatively in the clause, we linked a white vertex of x2 with a gray vertex of this matching edge. And same thing here, we add a single matching edge that we link with the white vertex. And for x3, it's the same thing than for x1. Since x3 appears positively, we linked a gray vertex of x3 with a white vertex of this matching edge. And we also add a single matching edge here. So we can note that if no incident edge of this closed gadget is cut, then we need to do 3 cuts in this gadget. So because if I cut this vertex, for example, I cannot clean another matching edge because if I remove this edge, then this edge is not removed. So this extremity is not clean. So I also have to add 1 cut here and 1 cut here. So I have 3 cuts in total. But if at least one incident edge is cut, so for example, if the edge between x2 and this clause is cut, then I just need to use 2 cuts in this gadget, because if I cut this vertex, then it allows to clean this matching edge and also this one. And I also had to add another cut here to clean the last matching edge. So that means that if my clause is satisfied, then I just need 2 cuts in it. And if my clause is unsatisfied, I will need 3 cuts in it. So that's the behavior I want to have for my closed gadget. Now for the variable gadget. So I also construct an alternating cycle where the number of matching edges is equal to 2 times the number of occurrences of xi in the formula. So in this example, xi occurs 3 times in the formula. And I choose 1 matching edge on 2 of this cycle, and I link each of these matching edge to a closed gadget. So for example, xi occurs negatively in the closed Q1. So I linked the closed gadget Q1 with a white vertex of this matching edge. And I also add, like for the close, a single matching edge here. xi occurs positively as well in Q4. So I do the same thing than for Q1. I link a gray vertex of Q4 with a white vertex here. And xi occurs positively in Q5. So I link Q5 with a gray vertex of my variable gadget. And for this gadget, I have 2 possibilities to clean every matching edge. So the first possibility is to cut every white vertex on the top. And the second one is to cut every gray vertex on the top here. And I use that to make an assignment for my variable. So if the white vertices are cut, then I assign xi to false, and if the gray vertices are cut, then I assign the true value to x1, to xi. So for example, if I put the value true to xy, then I can see that I remove the edge between this variable gadget and the variable gadget of Q5. So that means that in this gadget, I know that I just will need 2 cuts in it to clean every matching edge of this gadget. So that's coherent with what I did in the previous slide. Because in this gadget, Q5 xi appears positively. So that means that this clause is satisfied. So if I sum up that, so I denote psi as the number of occurrences of the variable xi in the formula, and m is the number of clauses in my formula. So I need the number of occurrences cuts in every variable gadget, and if my formula is satisfied, then I just need 2 cuts in each closed gadget. So that means that if I do the sum of that, I need 5 m cuts in my construction if I can find a satisfying assignment of my variable for the formula. So that's how we show that it is NP complete for the subcubic bipartite planar graph. And now we can also use the previous result to show some lower bounds on semi-brutal cut. So for that, we reuse the same reduction from the problem max 3SAT4. So it's a 3SAT formula where each variable has a bounded number of occurrences, which is equal to 4. And we want to find an assignment that maximizes the total, the number of clauses satisfied. And we know that this problem cannot be approximated with a factor better than epsilon 4, which is almost equal to 1.0042. So we use this lower bound to compute a lower bound for semi-brutal cut. And to do that, the easiest way is to have for each extra cut we have to use in the construction, it corresponds to an unsatisfied clause in the formula. But for that, we have to change the variable gadget because, for example, if I have a variable gadget of a variable that occurs 2 times positively and 2 times negatively in my formula, if I add just 1 cut in this gadget, then I can satisfy every clause in this where the variable occurs. And I don't want to do that because I want that each extra cut corresponds to one unsatisfied clause in my formula. So to prevent that, I modify this gadget by alternating successively positive clause where the variable appears positively and clause where the variable appears negatively, like this. And by doing that, if I want to satisfy every clauses in that are linked to this variable, I have to use 2 extra cuts in my variable gadget. So that will correspond to this formula. So by doing that, we can make L reduction between max reset and semi-brutal cut. So an L reduction is a reduction between one problem P and to another P prime. We have 2 polynomial functions, f that construct an instance of P prime from an instance of pi. And we have G who construct an instance in the function G construct a solution in an instance of pi from a solution of an instance of pi prime. And in the L reduction, we want to find 2 constants alpha 1 and alpha 2, such that alpha 1 is a coefficient between the 2 optimal solutions of P prime and pi, and alpha 2 is a coefficient between the difference of the approximation solution and the optimal solution between these 2 problems. So we can construct L reduction like this. So we know that in a 3-stat formula, we have at least 3 of 8 clauses that are satisfied. And so we use that to compute alpha 1. So we have 5m cuts, which corresponds to the number of cuts that are necessary if the formula is satisfied. And we have to add 1 extra cut per unsatisfied clause. So since we know that the number of unsatisfied clause is less than 1 on 8, so we know that the optimal solution in the construction has a number of cuts less or equal to 5m plus m on 8. And by doing that, we can find that the optimal solution of max 3-stat is greater or equal to the optimal solution in the construction with alpha 1 equal to 41 on 7. And for alpha 2, we know that if a clause is unsatisfied in the Boolean formula, then we have to add 1 extra cut in the construction. So if we add the 2 scores of an approximation solution and an optimal solution, we obtain the same value, like this. So that means we have alpha 2, which is equal to 1. So we managed to construct an L reduction with alpha 1 equal to 41 on 7 and alpha 2 equal to 1. And with that, we can compute a lower bound for semi-brutal cut. And we can show that this problem, the semi-brutal cut problem, cannot be approximated with a factor better than 1 plus this value. So it's a really small value, but we know that it is a constant. So we know that we have no polynomial, no pitas to solve the semi-brutal cut. So I finished this presentation with an approximation result. So it's a really simple algorithm. So we can show that sum-total cut can be approximated with a factor equal to 4 for the cut score. So for that, we introduce the following definition. So a forbidden path is a path of length 3 where the edge in the middle is a matching edge. And we know that if we cut each of these vertex, at least one of them must be in an optimal solution, because if it is not, then that means that this matching edge is not thin, and so it's not a solution. So if we compute a maximal packing of forbidden path in the solution graph, and if we cut every vertex of this maximal packing, then we know that each time we cut 4 vertices, at least one of them must be in an optimal solution. So that's why we can have a 4 approximation algorithm. So that's it for the approximation algorithm. And so this table summarizes the result on the complexity we have for the sum-orbital cut. So we explore different parameters like the maximal degree. We also find some result in split graphs, and that's pretty much it. So we find some lower bounds and some upper bounds for this problem with different hypotheses. Okay, so I complete my little scheme for the genome reconstruction. So for the linearization, in input we have a solution graph, and in output we have partial sequences. So it's partial because we have to remove some edges of the solution graph, so we lost some information on the graph. So that's it for the presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. So any questions?
So maybe I could have a question. Have you also tried to do some, practical computation like this for approximation, whether it behaves well in practice on practical data?
Yes. Actually, we developed 2 approximation algorithms. So one for approximation, the one I present you, and 2 approximation for the weight score. So the for approximation is really bad on real instances because we cut too much vertices.
Mm-hmm.
So the greedy approach is way better, but has no bounded ratio. But the 2 approximation almost finds the optimal solution. So it's better.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you.
Maybe I can have a question. When you started with this complete bipartite graph, that my feeling was that it has something to do with vertex cover. Like, I mean, either you cover the edge from that side or that side.
Yes.
Are there any further similarities that one could explore? Like, could you really model it as some vertex cover?
Yes. Actually, we have. It can be reduced from vertex cover. So it's the case for the split graph.
Okay.
Here we have a lower bound equal to 2 for under the UGC hypothesis. And also the approximation algorithm is really close to the approximation algorithm we have for vertex cover. So instead of have a maximal packing of forbidden path for the vertex cover, we can have a maximal packing of matching.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any further questions?
So actually, this study of split graphs, it really comes from the reduction from vertex cover, or is there any like practical motivation behind the scene?
Behind the, I didn't hear the first part of your question. Sorry.
Okay, so the thing is, this split graph, it's a natural graph class. So
No.
is it coming somewhat from practice, or is it only coming from the reduction?
No, for the split graph, it's just that we want to see where are the border between polynomial and exponential instances.
Okay,
But
I see.
in practical, the instances are not really dense, are pretty sparse. So
Okay.
it's more path or something like that.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, then let's thanks again. Thank you for coming, and
Thank you.
see you next time, maybe once in person.
Yeah, maybe.